So first thing I would suggest is have a workstation for yourself. If you have an anti-static mat, that would be great. This is not that. This is just a cutting mat, but it's better than nothing. And you're also going to need a screwdriver. Our first product that we're going to open up today is our motherboard. It's a Prime Z390A. So you'll notice the motherboard is actually in a plastic bag. This is for anti-static. So we're going to open it up.
Actually, you leave that here.
Beautiful, isn't it? There's other components inside the box we'll go over when we're building it. Not as exciting. Our next part is our SSD, which is 1 terabyte. It's a Samsung. This is pretty standard. Like I said, not as exciting, but here's your solid state drive. A little bit prettier. Next option is your RAM sticks. These are kind of cool because they have some color on them. Which actually is cool because our case is clear, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So you'll be able to see the color on them through the case. Here we go. Next is our CPU or our processor. We have a Core i5 9th gen, which apparently right now is extremely hard to get for multiple reasons. A lot of people are purchasing computers during this time because they need a computer during the pandemic, and also they are buying them for Christmas, for gifts. So we have the actual component here all wrapped up. I'm actually going to leave it in this until we are ready to use it, just for safety reasons. This will be our graphics card. I should probably show it to you. GeForce GTX 1050 Ti with 4 gigs of memory already in it. This is for a gaming computer, which should be a little bit more high-end. Also in a anti-static bag. Make sure you're holding it properly from the sides. Looks like we got some tape on there, which we'll remove later. Second to last, this is our power supply. Probably the least exciting thing to look at. Maybe the most complex to open, who knows? Lots of cabling. Not too exciting looking, sorry. So this nice little side view. Has a clear glass panel. You have a little bit of airflow on the top, which is nice. 2 USBs and the power cord. You also have a slot for you to plug in either a microphone or earbuds. And then the front of the case, pretty streamlined. It's got the fans, which look really cool. There's a fan in the back, and there is no where to put in an optical drive on this one, so you will have to either download stuff from the internet or upload via USB. Alright, there were some extra components inside the box that I said I would talk about later. Some of these we're going to use, some of them we won't. This one we most definitely will for the back of the case. Some of these maybe not. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the CPU. Now I did bring some thermal paste from class, but I think sometimes they give you some. I guess just figuring out how to open it is the hardest part. Okay, so don't want to rip anything.
3 hours later.
Okay, so you have the main brain part, and then you have your cooler with your fan and also your heatsink.
Looks like it does have thermal compound on the heatsink already.
Great.
You can see here they've already pre-applied the thermal compound. You want to make sure you don't touch that to anything until you apply it.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to open up this little locking pin here. We talked about this in class before. This one's a little bit different than the one I've seen. So I'm going to pull on this, making sure when we hold on we don't touch anything we don't need to. My hands are in the way. Well. Now that we've opened that, we're going to grab our components, and we want to make sure we are extremely careful with this. We have tiny little pins in here that we don't want to bend, so when we put it in, we want to make sure we put it in the correct direction. So it's important to look at the pattern that's on the board and also the pattern that is on the actual component itself.
So this is actually a ZIF socket. Zero insertion force, so there's actually not pins on the chip. The pins are on the board themselves.
You are correct.
Feel free to edit that out.
No, I think you're right. So kind of just dropped in. And you're going to pull this down, and you're going to lock it back in. Great. We're going to wait on putting on the actual cooler portion. We're going to now go to our RAM sticks. We're going to take them out of the plastic packaging, and we're going to insert them. This is pretty easy as they lock in. One thing to pay attention to is where the notch is on your actual RAM stick. You do want to make sure that it lines up with the slit that's on the actual board. First of all, you want to make sure that they're open.
Actually, you should pay attention to the manual. It will tell you what the recommended memory configuration is. So if we flip through our manual here, you can see if we're populating 2 DIMM slots, that we should be putting it in DIMM B2 and DIMM A2. So B2, we should actually be this one and this one. So then you hook that left one first.
By pushing it down, it should bring this little foot up, and you're gonna hear that locking sound. That's that golden sound. So we're gonna do the second one. Maybe facing it the correct direction like I told you should do in the first place would have been smart. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to put on the cooling fan that goes above the CPU. Why we decided to put the RAM sticks in first and then put in the CPU cooler is so that that was not in the way of us putting in the RAM sticks, because sometimes it starts to get tight.
Do you want this on?
Yeah. Now, you want to pay attention. It's kind of hard to see now because of the RAM sticks, but there are 4 screw holes. You got to make sure that you're lining those holes up with the 4 holes that are here for your component.
I actually would turn it so that your fan pops up there. I think that should reach. Watch out, there's a compound on the bottom.
Yeah. Do these just like press in?
Yep.
All right. I guess you don't need to screw these in. You just kind of press fit them. I think it's good. I'm not gonna lie, that was kind of nerve-wracking. Not my most favorite way, I guess. Easier than screwing it in and having the potential of dropping a screw or getting the screwdriver scraped on something.
So, just so those are out of the way.
Alright, so now we have the case, and there are actually 2 sides of the case that you can take off. For this side, we're going to work from the side that has the glass panel. There is a clear protective shield on here. If you can see, it says fragile. I'm going to leave that on for whoever actually gets this computer, so you can take it off when you get it. We're going to take off, there are 2 screws here. Sometimes they are finger loose that you can twist them off by your own strength, like these 2 are. If not, you're going to need a screwdriver to get it off. You want to make sure you don't lose them. So we talked about organization last week in class, and you want to either put them in a cup or a magnetic cup that they're not going to fall out. We talked about even an ice tray so you can separate all the different pieces, but you want to make sure you don't lose those. Then you're going to kind of just push and it will slide out, and you do want to put this in a nice safe . So first we're going to install the IO shield. It should pretty easily snap in. You're going to want to put this in first so that you can line up your motherboard with this, because it has all the different components that attach to the motherboard, including the USBs, sound ports, etc. You're gonna have to do some cable management while you do your project. Get stuff out of your way. Next, we're gonna drop in the motherboard. Make sure you're grabbing it properly along the sides.
shield wasn't fully seated.
Alright, just want to make sure all your standoffs line up. Look pretty good. Make sure your IO shield lines up. Looks pretty good.
So there's actually 9 holes on the board, 3, 3, and 3. That is where you're going to install your screws that connect the motherboard to the actual case. Believe it or not, the screws came with a case and not actually the motherboard. One thing to be really careful about is dropping screws on your motherboard or dropping your screwdriver on your motherboard. I've had students in the past, when they're taking their computer apart to put it back together, drop the screwdriver on the motherboard and completely messed it up and it didn't work anymore.
So that is really through square thread. It's going to work until your time off. Then rub it in.
As you can see, he's taking his time on putting these screws in. It's really important not to screw one in all the way really tight like he stated before, and you tighten them each a little bit, get all 9 of them in, and then work your way back around and tighten them all up. It's going to make sure that the board doesn't get tight on one spot and warp the board while you're continuously screwing them in. And also, you don't want to rush it so you don't break any components or drop the screwdriver. Now you can plug in your fan from the case. And make sure that the component is facing the correct way of where the slits are in the plastic piece of the adapter. Again, cable management is important, especially when you have a case that has a clear side.
Some zip ties on that leg.
And cut it there.
back. Putting in the graphics card. In order to do that, you need to remove this cover. Pull out.
So the graphics card slips into a very similar slot like the RAM sticks do. So you do want to make sure, obviously, it's facing the correct direction, and take the plastic piece off of the bar. And you should be able to hear it lock in just like the RAM. There you go. And then you're going to screw back on the side to hold it in place. So now we're going to put in the power supply, and it would be a little bit easier to access where it's going to go in by taking off the back side of the case. So that's what we've just completed. There's a little baggie of screws, and it is pretty heavy, so be prepared for that.
Hold it in place. You won't put the screws in.
What are 4 screws? you want to go back and tighten them all up.
So now we need to figure out what cables need to be routed to the front. So that's your reset switch, your hard drive LED, and you have your power switch and your power LEDs. So to look at our case and look where those connections need to go. So I routed these two cables up through the lower grommet, but reviewing it, it looks like I should actually switch these two cables. Then I need to run my power LEDs to the bottom here. Looks like they might actually come up through this hole would be best. So let me rearrange those.
Currently all the components that are being plugged into the motherboard are from the power supply.
This is your main power connection. Then we should also have a CPU power connection, which is up here. far as I can tell, our graphics card doesn't require any additional power. So now we just need to route the case connections. So now we need to make our different case connections. So again, these are our switch panels. This is a case fan connection. This is audio. And this is USB. There should be a standoff for the motherboard where you connect your panels to. Makes it easier to see what goes to which. So that's the connections. You can see that they're labeled. A power switch. Your hard drive LED, then your reset switch. So once you have them on the connector, plug those into the motherboard. So check your orientation.
USB for the case. I'll need the manual to see which one's the audio. I'm just looking up from.
Okay.
Pretty sure it's 17. 17. It's 19.
It's this one.
Yeah.
I think it's right there.
Yeah, this one here on the end. Yep.
Yep.
Got it?
No, you're gonna do it because you gotta make one to do it. Oh.
All right.
Hard drive.
There's a fan in here.
This one?
Yeah, but I'm not sure how to get it to the.
Like where it plugs in?
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to find the best place to plug it in.
Can we choose any one of those three?
Yeah, there's a case fan here. I don't know if that cable will be long enough. Alright, the last piece is the case fan, which is, there's a case fan too, right here. Alright.
So, next we need to install a SATA cable for our hard drive. Alright, next we're going to install the hard drive. With this case, there's multiple options. We're going to go with the mount here. That seems to be our clearest target. So for that, it requires certain screws.
Alright, you'll notice there are 4 little holes. These are the screws that came with the case. We're going to place one in each corner just to prep. The goal is to always drop your screws. Then have someone help you pick them up.
Just walk around.
Alright, so along with those screws, don't do that with mechanical hard drive, but that's a SSD, should be fine. These rubber grommets just go in the holes here. You want to tighten those screws up.
Then we need to get the power cord run for the hard drive.
That is a SATA drive, requires a SATA connector. Just pop that through here. And then can you grab me a SATA cable? Which is one of these. So you have two options. You have the straight connectors, and then you have 90-degree connectors. I think I'm going to go with a 90-degree connector and run it directly out the back of the case. Something also to pay attention to.
Your computer prefers usually that you go in the lowest drive slot. Okay. Looks like that's going to be this lower left one here.
That's connected on that end. Temporarily disconnect this. Pull some of the cables back in. Take our hard drive. Got the case?
Yeah.
We're going to make these connections. Starting with the power. Then hard drive, or the data connection. And then this should just press in the bottom here. Some extra slack out of the cables. It just sits like that. Once you have your cables in place, it helps to keep them organized by throwing little zip ties in. And that's the hard drive. Alright, so we just did a little bit of cable management, not the best, just enough to help us get the cover back on. So I'm going to start with the rear cover. And that's it.